To start off with this project, you're going to need to get some fabric at your local fabric store. This is a navy blue, even though it looks almost black on the camera. Then you're going to take the shirt template and lay it on. Make sure that the fabric stretches over a little bit on each side, so then you have room to make the part that sticks out where the buttons go. Then you're going to need to make a line near the bottom where your legs would go, all the way down here. Make a line straight down, and then estimate it by your ankles almost. So right about there, and then cut it off. So once you cut it off, you can get the scrap out of the way, and then figure out the correct more length later. Then once you cut out the template, you're going to go all the way around, stop right there, going to go through the armholes, over, stop right here through the armholes, leave that part where I'm pointing right now, and then cut over. You'll see later in the video. Now that it is all cut out, I had folded the coat inwards along with the shirt so that it looks like how you'd wear it, and I had folded these, cut these edges to make them look like triangles, and then measured out from the middle of my chest over, because those will be where the buttons go, and then the coat opens up. So you're going to cut out these shapes, and then you're going to line it up and then make the other side as well. Now that you have drawn the flap designs on, after looking at measurements, and I have made them even on both sides and gone out to the end of my pecs, you make a little curve going right where I pointed, just a tiny bit pointing inwards like that, and then you're going to cut along both those lines. Next, you will make a smaller and thicker triangle just on top of the other two. It is a little bit smaller and, like I said, thicker, so whenever you're done making those, cut them out the same way and make sure they're even, and then just make sure the rest of the coat looks good. Once you wear the coat to make sure it fits, the next thing you're going to have to do is cut slowly down right from those triangle edges, just a little bit pointing outwards like this, just to make the coat fall open instead of curling inwards. Just keep going inch by inch, and then once you find the right width that you have going around your body, you're good. Then the next thing, because you're cutting, it might fray, so you could either sew or use some kind of fabric glue or glue of some sort to get the edges down. I'm using this stuff. It's just no-sew fabric glue in a bottle. I'm using this stuff to go along the edges and make sure the edges are even and they look nice. Next, what you can do is go out to Goodwill or get any brown leather jacket that you have and make those triangle folds. Make a good sized fold, a shape that looks like the fold. Make a good sized version of it, maybe a little bit smaller, and sew or fabric glue those on top of the folds. To sew the shoulders down, you can do a thing called the reverse stitch or hidden stitch, where that's where you flip the coat inside out and you sew it that way, so when you flip it inside back or right side in, it looks neater than what it would if it wasn't. So I'm going to do that just by sewing them like this and then sewing them flat and then flipping them back inside out. After you sew the shoulders, the next thing we do to make the sleeves, take any old sleeve that you have that you can cut up and cut up the seam and lay it out flat onto a long piece of fabric that is longer than your arm. Then you're going to draw it out, but make it go thinner as you get to your wrist. Cut that out and sew it along the edge, and then sew it along the edge of the armhole on the shoulder piece. To make some design on the shoulder, make a pretty big triangle that goes from the edge of your shoulder to about the middle, bottomish of your bicep, then the back and middle of your shoulders. Then you're going to make a line halfway through it and cut that line, and then sew them on individually on both shoulders. After separating both pieces, I had pinned the trapezoid looking one onto my shoulder after making it even by measuring out both sides, and then I'm going to sew it around evenly all in one line around the edges. After you make the shoulder pieces, next thing you do is take the difference between the empty space in the back between the two shoulder pieces and angle it downwards to a point. After taking the measurement, make a big piece that ends off to a point, which you'll see soon, and make it go to the top. I had drew the shape onto the coat, and then I had made an exact copy of that by going back and forth with proportions and laying this piece over top. Now I've left a little bit of excess over it. I'm going to cut that off and then sew it on and fit it like a puzzle piece between the two pieces. After I've cut off all the excess, I have pinned it down along the edges and made a line up the middle because the piece is split up the middle. So after I cut it up the middle, I'm going to rearrange the pins to make them there and there, there and there. And then I'm going to sew all the way around along those edges, up the middle, down the other side, with a little gap in between. I have to cut it over and over just to get a tiny little gap. Then along there and there and there. Here is the completed back shoulder parts along with both shoulders. There's the gap in the middle, along the sides. Next, it is time to make the buttons. Because I didn't want to buy any buttons, I had made them. To make them, I got cardboard out of a binder, a 3-ring binder. Take the plastic off of that and get the cardboard from like underneath it. Then make as big as the buttons you want to be. Make 3 layers of each for each button. So I ended up making about a couple dozen circles. Then what I had done was I had taken a drill. You can use punching pliers, hole makers, any kind of hole maker, and start to sew those buttons together. Then while you do that, sew them onto their respective spots underneath the leather, along with the buttons as they're weaved together. Then once you do that, take some hot glue and cover the buttons. Once you have covered the buttons and the hot glue is dried, make sure they're in tight and paint over the hot glue to cover the thread and make it look like a button, hopefully. Now it's time to make the buttonholes. Lay the coat flat out on the ground and take a knife or scissors or something you could easily cut with along in the leather. I'm going to use this knife. Be careful if you use a knife. As you make the buttonholes, make them really, really small and start to wither away at it very carefully and slowly, so that eventually you can make it big enough. Keep trying to fit it through, big enough so you can pinch it up like this and fit the button through. Then, to make the next one after you completed the bottom one, feel for it and make a little bit closer to this edge on the left than the right, but cut away at it slowly yet again and do it for all the other 9 buttons. Next, along the buttons, forward to straight from one button to the other side, make thick sew lines just by going back and forth with some black or dark brown thread. Do that with all 10 buttons. Then, from the top corner on the top leather piece, go from the corner to the middle and do that same thing on both sides. I had also put a button on the corner by the inside of that triangle piece. I had laid out the coat as flat as possible and found the middle by taking the length and dividing it by 2. I had then cut up slowly, wearing it every now and then and making sure that the slit up the middle went to at least by my butt in the middle of it. I then had my brother draw at the bottom of my calf, and I had went a little bit lower than that, and I had cut that off to make the length of the coat. So there's the slit up the middle and the length of that. Alright guys, here it is. The final showcase of the coat. Again, I'm sorry that I lost the videos. I should have been more careful with them. But I hope you liked the tutorial anyway. I sure liked making it. And I'm going to make the hood to go along with this very soon.